Good evening. How are we all? So I've just had a shower and I've had an epiphany, and I'm going to put it down on ClipChamp. Um, yeah, trying to save the planet and humanity, and not having much luck. But I just was reading about how in Australia there's an epidemic of women getting killed so far, 19 this year, um, which is not good at all. But then I also had a look, and some women have killed men. So on the whole, all we ever hear about is men killing women, and you don't hear about women killing men. But on average, every year, different countries, on average, 66% of men kill women, and 33% of women kill men in intimate relationships, which is not good. It's a disgusting statistic, but it's there. But we don't hear about that alternate flip side statistic, which we should do. So I'm saying that every single media release that has something like always beating up on men, it's always the men statistic, the men are bad, should have to, by law, place that same opposite statistic on the news report, whether it be print, television, social media, whatever. The opposite statistic needs to be there. And that will let us all realize that it's a pandemic on both sides. Just because it takes 2 years for women to catch up to the numbers of killing men that men killed in women in 1 year doesn't mean it's not a tragedy. But we can't just blame one people and put them in a basket and label all men as bad. Our boys growing up, they'll just think we're going to grow up to be wife killers and woman bashers or whatever. So, you know, if we can get the politicians to make it a law that any statistics, any news needs to be dealt with statistics, then it's going to be much better. And we're all going to understand that it's a problem we've got together. Both sexes, all races, all religions. If we can deal with facts, then we can get rid of the propaganda. And it's so much more important nowadays with artificial intelligence and deep fakes, because we can have anyone saying anything. And without having the media accountable for 100% statistics, then we're going to get lost. So it needs to be legislated, and I think it's going to go a long way to saving things. Now I can give some examples here, because also when killing children, which is absolutely disgusting. You would never even think that in society that would happen, that a parent could kill their children, but it happens. And there's roughly, like I say, depending on countries, depending on different scenarios, years, time frames, but roughly in a year in Australia, you'll have 49% of women killing their children and 51% of men killing their children. And there's a little bit of an area between toddler age 2 to 5 where women are statistically killing more of their children than the men. But I've never heard this statistic. It's only when you look it up you find it. But whenever it's put into the media that a man has killed a child, like Rosie Batty, who I have deep sympathy for, but we also need to put the alternative statistic: how many women have killed their children? We cannot be fair. We cannot grow together, learn together in the sexes, religions, everything else, unless we're dealing with facts. It's not always beating up on men. Okay? And Black lives matter, I know, but white lives matter too. White lives do matter. And that's another thing. You hear about the Aboriginal deaths in custody. They did the Royal Commission, and since then it's an outcry. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm only talking roughly. You can fact check me to realise that I'm in the ballpark, but just say 500 Aborigines have died since the Royal Commission into the deaths in custody. So 500 have died. I also know there's been about 1,500 non-Indigenous people die. So it's like about 25% of Indigenous people in prison die. Not Indigenous people in prison, but deaths in prison are 25% Aboriginal, 75% non-Aboriginal. But then when you relate that to the statistics that on average, our prison population in Australia is 33% Aboriginal and 66% non-Aboriginal, then what we've got here is a situation where if you're an Aboriginal in prison, you're less likely to die in custody than a non-Indigenous person. But they never say that fact. Why don't they say that fact? It's like our prison guards are deliberately killing black people on a massive scale. It's not a fact at all. The fact are you're safer in jail as an Aboriginal than a non-Aboriginal, but no one ever cares about the white lives don't matter, do they? It's only the black ones that we hear about. And it shouldn't be a statistic. Well, it is a statistic. You can't get away from statistics, but it shouldn't be something that is straight through the media and it's causing shame for non-Indigenous people. It's causing sorrow, it's causing hatred against non-Indigenous people by the Indigenous populations because of what the media portrays. The media is totally irresponsible and the media needs to be accountable. And if they're not doing it by themselves, which obviously not, the government needs to introduce legislation to say that if you're going to put a fact out there, put the opposite exact fact. So then we can all get along with each other and we can work with each other towards fixing these problems instead of always doing what sells the headlines and is politically popular. So it's extremely upsetting that 25% of deaths in custody are Aboriginals, but they are 33% of the population. So they are safer in jail than out of jail. Okay, now if that's a fact, you can fact check me, but what I've done on my research, that's basically they're safer in jail than out of jail. But no one would ever know that because the media don't let you know that, and the government doesn't legislate that they need to provide you with that true fact. So, where do we go from here? I just think that state, federal politics, I don't know who. I don't know who's going to do it. I don't know which political party wants to do it. How do you legislate it? But I think that if Australia could do that, if Australia could make those facts part of it, it would stop so much division. It would bring us together, and we could probably be a world leader in this. And then other countries would follow. And if the way of the media going forward in the future, that facts had to be provided, we'd get rid of all of the conspiracy theorists because we have to base it on facts. Now, some things you can't. Some things are subjective, and you're never going to get the facts. But when there are statistical facts like deaths, prison populations, when there are statistical facts, they should be provided. When it's subjective, then we need to rely on the media to be responsible with that. But as we've seen, that you can't. It's all propaganda. You know, the autocrats prove that. You know, I think a majority of Russians still think Putin's a strong man looking after their best interests, and Chinese probably think Xi Jinping. I'm not sure about the North Koreans thinking little rocket man's too good because they're living pretty shit. But you know, if the rest of the world provides this factual media and not just who owns the media outlet and whether they're left or right or whatever, if it's based on facts, then we can't go wrong. And then if Australia can do it and other countries follow, then soon the autocratic countries will have no choice but to follow once their people find out about it. And then they will be back to having free elections in China, free elections in Russia, and no more executing their political opponents like's just happened in Russia. Absolutely fucking disgusting. We shouldn't tolerate it. And the only way we can get around it is by telling facts, 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 facts. No more bullshit. So that's just my epiphany. And I think that it should be followed. All right. Over and out.